The hospital said an 8-year-old girl needed me, but I had never heard her name. I almost hung up. The nurse had called my workshop just before 4 on a Thursday afternoon while I was standing over a half-finished walnut dining table with sawdust on my sleeves. "Mr. Mercer, we have a Lucy Bennett here. Her mother was brought in by ambulance. You're listed as the secondary emergency contact." I looked at the phone as if she had dialed the wrong number. "You have the wrong Daniel Mercer." She read back my full name, then my phone number, then my address. "No," I said slowly. "That's me, but I don't know any Lucy Bennett." There was a pause. "Do you know Claire Bennett?" The name meant nothing. At least I thought it didn't. Then a face came back to me. Rain on a black coat. A woman standing at the back of a church 4 years earlier. My sister Rachel's funeral. I had spoken to her for maybe 30 seconds. Yet somehow, 4 years later, she'd trusted me with her daughter. By the time I reached County General, I had convinced myself there had to be a simple explanation. Then I walked into the family waiting area and saw a little girl sitting alone in a plastic chair, gripping the strap of a purple backpack. She had a scrape across one knee and dried tears on her cheeks. The girl looked up when she heard my name. "You're Daniel?" "Yes." Her shoulders dropped slightly. "Mom said you would come." That was the moment I knew there was no clerical error. Claire Bennett had expected me. I just didn't know why. A social worker explained what had happened. Claire had fallen through part of the back porch at her house. The wood beneath one of the steps had collapsed. She'd struck her head and badly injured her shoulder. Lucy had called 911. Doctors had found a concussion and a fracture that would require surgery the next morning. "She'll be staying at least 2 nights, the social worker said. I nodded toward Lucy. "And her father?" "He died 3 years ago. There isn't family nearby. An aunt in Arizona. She can't arrive until Sunday." It was Thursday. "So, what happens tonight?" "That depends partly on you." Claire had listed me as someone authorized to care for Lucy temporarily in an emergency. Not family, not a legal guardian, just me. "I've met Claire once," I said. "Maybe twice." Lucy looked up. "My mum knows about you." That made the whole thing stranger. The social worker told me I could say no. They would arrange temporary placement until Lucy's aunt arrived. I could walk out, return to my workshop, finish my table, and never learn why Claire Bennett had written my name on that form. Instead, I asked, "Can I see her?" Claire was awake, though barely. There was a bandage near her temple, one arm held against her chest. When I stepped inside, she stared at me for several seconds. Then she whispered, "You came." Not hello, not I'm sorry. Just those 2 words. "You put my name on your daughter's emergency form." "I know." "Why?" "You don't remember me." "I remember the funeral." A faint smile touched her face. "That's more than I expected." I pulled a chair closer. "The hospital wants to know if Lucy can stay with me." "If you can't, don't." "That isn't what I asked." She looked toward the door. Then she said quietly, "Rachel told me you always showed up." My throat tightened. Rachel. My younger sister had been dead for 4 years, and I still had the habit of changing the subject whenever someone mentioned her. Claire continued. "She used to say if something broke at midnight, you complained the entire drive over but still arrived with a toolbox. That sounds like her. She trusted you." I stared at the floor. Rachel and I had loved each other. We had also spent the last year of her life barely speaking. There had been arguments, pride, silence. Neither of us apologized soon enough. "My daughter shouldn't be some debt you pay to Rachel," Claire said. "She's not." "Then you can say no." I should have. Instead, I asked, "Does she like pizza?" Claire blinked. What? Because that's approximately the full range of my parenting skills. She laughed, then winced. Cheese. No mushrooms. That was how Lucy Bennett came home with me. The first 10 minutes in my truck were silent. At minute 11, she asked, "Do you have Wi-Fi?" Yes. Good. At minute 14, she asked, "Do you have kids?" No. A wife? No. A cat? No. She looked out the window. Your house sounds empty. Children have a talent for saying things adults spend years avoiding. My house is fine. Okay. The way she said it told me she didn't believe me. That night she ate one slice of pizza and stared at her phone, waiting for news from her mother. At 9:30, she appeared in the hallway wearing mismatched socks. Daniel? Yeah? Mom's going to be okay, right? I could have lied. Instead, I said, "The doctors think she'll be okay. Tomorrow they fix her shoulder, and I'll take you to see her." Lucy nodded. Then she hesitated. "Mum didn't only pick you because of Rachel." I waited. "She said you fix things without making people feel stupid for breaking them." Before I could ask what she meant, she disappeared into the guest room. I didn't sleep much. Claire's surgery went well the next morning. The bigger problem arrived that afternoon. I went to her house to collect clothes for Lucy. The back porch wasn't simply damaged. It was dangerous. The collapsed step had exposed rotted framing. Moisture had spread beneath the exterior wall, and when I pushed against one section of railing, the whole thing moved. A yellow inspection notice had already been attached near the door. I called Claire. "Your porch has been leaking for a long time." "I know." "How long?" Silence. "Since last winter." "Why didn't you call someone?" "I did." "And?" "I got 3 estimates." That answered the question. Repairs cost money. Money Claire didn't have. "What happens if the inspector doesn't clear it?" I asked. "I can't use the back section of the house." "You may have more damage than that." "I know, Daniel." There was an edge in her voice. Embarrassment. I recognized it. I'd heard it from customers who apologized before admitting they couldn't afford the work. So, I didn't make it worse. "I'm going to open a section of siding and see how far the damage goes. You're not working on my house for free." "I didn't say I was." "You were about to." "I was about to inspect it." That evening, I explained what I'd found. The repair was larger than the porch, but not impossible. If the main support beam is sound, we can save most of it. Claire caught one word. "We." "I have 2 guys at the shop." "No." "Claire." "No. You're already taking care of Lucy." Lucy was drawing on the back of a hospital menu. Without looking up, she said, "Mom, the porch tried to kill you." Claire closed her eyes. "Thank you, Lucy." I had to turn away so she wouldn't see me smile. The following Monday, Claire came home with strict instructions not to lift anything. Her aunt had arrived, which meant my emergency responsibility was officially over. I could return to my own life. Instead, at 7:30 Tuesday morning, I was in Claire's yard removing rotten boards. She opened the door. "You're still here." "I own a truck. Escaping is difficult." She held out a coffee. Black. 1 sugar. Exactly how I drank it. "How did you know?" "Rachel." For the first time, I asked how well she'd known my sister. Very well. Apparently, they had worked together at a community health clinic. Rachel had brought groceries after Lucy was born. She had sat with Claire during her husband's chemotherapy. She had been the person who stayed when everyone else went home. That last part hurt. Rachel had been that person for everyone. And I'd still managed not to be that person for her at the end. Claire must have seen it on my face. "She never said you were a bad brother." "I didn't ask." "I know." I picked up my crowbar. "We should get this wall open before it rains." It was what I always did, move toward the thing I could repair, away from the thing I couldn't. Over the next week, the house became part construction site, part gathering place. My employee, Nate, rebuilt the stairs. Lucy's aunt painted trim. A retired electrician from across the street appeared with a ladder and refused to leave. Claire protested every expense until I showed her real receipts, not charity disguised as accounting. She could afford the materials if we reused part of the structure and spread the labor over time. That mattered to her. She didn't want rescuing. She wanted a fair chance. Then we opened the final section of wall. Nate looked at me and stopped talking. The support beam was worse than we'd hoped. Water had reached the sill plate. The entire rear corner needed rebuilding. That evening, I sat beside Claire on the porch steps and told her. She didn't cry. She looked toward the yard where Lucy was throwing a tennis ball against the fence. How long? Maybe 2 weeks. The inspector comes next Friday. I know. If we fail, you'll probably have to stay somewhere else until it's cleared. Claire nodded. Then she said, I might sell. I turned toward her. This house was my husband's. He grew up here. Lucy took her first steps in that kitchen. I kept thinking if I held on long enough, keeping it would mean I protected something for her. And now? Now I'm wondering if I'm protecting a house or just my fear of changing anything. I understood that better than she knew. My phone rang. It was a contractor in Nashville. 3 months earlier, I'd bid on a 6-week restoration job. Excellent money. The biggest contract my company had been offered in 2 years. They wanted me to start Monday. I looked at Claire, at the half-open wall, at Lucy in the yard. There it was. The exit. Clean. Reasonable. Profitable. Exactly the kind of exit I had always taken when life became emotionally complicated. I told the contractor I'd call him back. That night, I found an old voicemail from Rachel. I hadn't listened to it in years. Her voice came through thinner than I remembered. Near the end, she said, "You think showing up only counts if you can fix the whole thing. Sometimes people just need you to stay." I sat alone in my workshop after the message ended. The next morning, I called Nashville. I told them I couldn't start Monday. They gave the contract to someone else. Claire found out 2 days later. She came into the workshop furious. "You turned down that job?" "I postponed it." "You lost it?" "Probably." "Because of my house?" "Not because of your house." "What does that mean?" "It means I made a decision." "You barely know me." "I know." "You barely know Lucy." "I know." "Then stop acting like this is your responsibility." I put down the tape measure. "You're right, it isn't." Claire went quiet. "That's why I'm still here." She stared at me. "I don't understand." "For years, I've stayed only where I was required to stay. Work, bills, obligations. Anything else, I found a reason to leave before someone could expect something from me." "Daniel." Rachel knew it. Claire looked down. "I didn't put you on that emergency form because I expected you to become part of our lives." "Then why did you?" She took a long time to answer. "After Tom died, I had to update Lucy's school forms. There was a blank space for another emergency contact. And you wrote me." I stared at that line for 10 minutes. "Why me?" Claire gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "Because 4 years ago, at Rachel's funeral, an elderly man dropped his cane outside the church. Everyone walked around him because they were rushing to their cars. I vaguely remembered him. "You picked it up," she said. "Then you noticed his ride hadn't arrived. You stood in the rain with him for almost half an hour." "That was nothing." "I know." She looked directly at me. "That's why I remembered it." Neither of us spoke. Then Claire said, "I still don't want you giving up your life for us." "I'm not. How can you be sure?" "Because staying doesn't feel like giving something up." We didn't kiss. Instead, Claire handed me a pencil from the workbench. You have 8 days until the inspector comes. I took it. 7.5. For the next week, everyone worked. Not because I asked them to save Claire, because Claire had spent years quietly becoming someone people wanted to help. A neighbour brought lunch. One of Lucy's teachers painted railing after school. Nate convinced a supplier to release materials early. Claire handled permits one-handed from the kitchen table. And Lucy made a sign in blue marker. Please don't fall through this porch again, Mum. We hung it inside the back door. Inspection morning arrived with rain. The inspector spent 40 minutes checking everything. He pushed on the railing, measured the stairs, crawled beneath the rebuilt corner. Claire pretended not to watch. Finally, he stood and said, "You've got cosmetic work left." Her face fell. Then he handed her the signed form. "But structurally, you're good." Lucy screamed from the kitchen. Claire laughed and hugged her daughter with one arm. I stepped away. That should have been the ending. The house was safe. Claire was recovering. Lucy didn't need me anymore. My job was done. 2 weeks later, someone knocked on my door while I was eating takeout alone. Claire stood outside with 2 coffees. Lucy stood beside her holding the same purple backpack I'd seen at the hospital. "I have a problem," Claire said. "How serious?" "Moderate." Lucy opened her backpack and pulled out a school form. "Mum has to update my emergency contacts." Claire tried not to smile. "She says it's urgent." "It is," Lucy said. I took the paper. My name was still there. Daniel Mercer, secondary emergency contact. Beside it, Claire had drawn a small question mark in pencil. "So you're asking if you should remove me?" Claire shook her head. "I'm asking if you want to stay." 4 years earlier, Rachel had accused me of believing showing up only mattered if I could fix everything. She had been right. I couldn't fix what happened between us. I couldn't get those lost conversations back. I couldn't erase Claire's grief or make Lucy forget the day an ambulance took her mother away. But standing in my doorway, with Claire holding my coffee exactly the way I liked it, and Lucy waiting for an answer, I finally understood. Sometimes staying was the thing you gave. I handed the form back. "Use ink this time." Lucy grinned. Claire stepped inside. And this time, I didn't need a reason to ask her to stay.